Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Cool. People are still spilling in, but we got a lot to talk about, so I'm actually just going to get us started. Welcome to, what did I call it? They launched the NES? Is that what we call this? Yeah. And I've got three bright young whippersnappers with me today on the panel.
That's you, too.
And one by one, we'll start with you, Bruce. Just introduce yourselves and your name and what you were doing at Nintendo in 1985.
All right, my name is Bruce Lowry, and I was Vice President of Sales for Nintendo America, and basically responsible for the launch of the Nintendo Entertainment System in North America.
And I'm Gail Tilden, and I was the advertising or marketing communications manager. I was responsible for things like the packaging, look and feel, the identity, and some of the kind of things that we did to introduce the product, like mall tours and TV commercials, things like that.
No, you're on. Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm Lance Barr, and I was probably called industrial designer then. I did the coin-op games, worked on the Game & Watch retail displays, and coin-op was winding down by then, but I did all the design work for the NES system and the AVS system.
Cool. I had really great presenter view notes for this, and I can't figure out how to make it work. So we're winging it, everyone. So really, I think the story of how you launched the NES in America, right, really starts with the Famicom launching in Japan. Feel free, any of you, to jump in, but, what is the Famicom, and why wouldn't you have just introduced this in '83 like Japan did?
You look at me.
Being a designer, I looked at that and thought it was awful.
Okay.
I didn't like the creamy color of the housing. I thought the little door that went dink-dink like this was weird, and
Right.
I thought that we kind of made fun that the gold metallic was leftover beer cans.
I think one of the things that I realized when I first saw it was it looked like a cheap toy. It wasn't very impressive. We had planned, we started early marketing ideas about, what the product should sell for, setting up the market plans for that. And when you looked at the FCS, it wasn't very impressive. And I think that, I guess I said something somewhere, that was a period when we were getting ready to do that. Everybody was getting these audio kits at home, you had your amplifiers, and you had this and that, and everything had stands for it. Well, let's kind of make this look more like an electronic item instead of a cheap toy. And that's kind of the marching orders that Lance was given, if I recall, was make it look much more substantial, I guess.
And we will get to the design, but I think another thing to talk about, right, would be the market in the U.S. This was really your department, right, in terms of like figuring out whether there was a market left to enter, right? So, what was your perspective on the video game market in '83, '84?
Well, I think everybody in this room probably realized that in 1983, the bottom fell out of the video game industry. Atari, they were selling it for, anywhere from $25 to $45. They were burying cartridges in Arizona. It was a total disaster. ColecoVision was, probably in half of the stores if they were lucky. And Mattel had their version, which was just as bad as Coleco's version. And they had some market share, but not a lot. So this is what you start to build on. And you have to look at it from the standpoint of we want to build a business out of this. This had been a very, very strong industry. I'd had numerous lunches and all with Nolan Bush now, who was involved with Atari. And, it was like, how are you going to even get into a market where people want to buy a product? Well, one of the things that I know I saw right off the bat was, and because I had two boys I was raising, one of them sitting here in the front row, was that, when you bought this equipment, they had a beautiful box that showed this great game picture on it. It was going to be just like the arcade.
You could see the remnants of some of that art.
Yeah, and I remember buying some of it, and it just looked like a different version of Pong. You know, it was just these little stick figures that you were playing, so it was nothing like the arcade version. I knew that, you know, if we were able to create that information or that knowledge, that we were able to take an actual arcade version and have it in a home version, we could be successful. And that was kind of the first initial things we started talking about.
Well, and you know, on that note, we'll get back to Mr. A later. You know, the introduction of the NES hardware was in the arcade, right? This is Gail. You were brand. Is it pronounced VS or versus?
I think we said VS.
Yeah, we said VS.
I don't know why. We said
Well,
VS.
and as you can see, we have two product representatives here to explain this to us.
So I have to tell you, you know, when you have a bucket list for things, one of my things is that I want to have a word in the dictionary. And we named it was the VS Pack and the Unipack,
Right.
PAK.
PAK.
And I always want PAK to be credited to me in the dictionary.
That's pretty good.
So,
That's us.
so what made you guys enter? What made you guys turn this around? Was it the arcade industry, like the dedicated coin op, was kind of going under as well? So you needed to figure out a new strategy, or what?
Yeah, the arcade hardware is very expensive, not just the cabinetry, but imagine the circuit boards and the monitors and the shipping of them, the system of that, and trying to collect quarters and split it between the bar or the grocery store and the person collecting the money. Anyway, so coming up with that system where you just had this, Lance can address it better, but the smaller board and the side graphics, which he would make, and that we would sell you one big cabinet and then sell you a pack, a Unipack or a VS pack.
Forgot about that. Yeah, so we gave them a new header and a side panel, they rolled it up, and the PC board chips, and they put it in there. Yeah, that was a way to extend that business while other companies were stopping and not making the coin-op games anymore. We made those kit systems for quite a few years.
And was this your design, Lance? These? I know you can't. I can't even tell what this one is. Oh, in the audience, which one is this?
Does that look like slalom?
Is it? Oh, I think it is Ice Climber.
So
Yeah.
so the control panel is generic, so we made it a generic piece, so you didn't have to swap it out. And the side panel is also generic. I think I did that.
Cool.
And the headers, I either did the art or produced the art.
So there's quite a few people that you guys worked with that couldn't make it here for various reasons, but I do have some video from some of them, and I want to thank Media Juice Productions, which is a documentary crew that shot a lot of you guys actually, that was able to loan us some clips. So let's hear from one of your former colleagues. Where is the volume? What happened, guys? Is Tech in
I
here?
always liked that picture. Yeah.
Okay.
Panic.
In Japan,
All right, let's start.
There you go.
well, when Nintendo in Japan, they had a home video game system that was selling extremely well in Japan. And the Japanese market was probably 3 years or 4 years behind the US market. So they were selling great in Japan, the market was taking off, and the US market was dying, it was dead. All the closeouts were taking place, no one would buy a new video game. And Nintendo sent us the Famicom, asking us to introduce this in the United States. And we're looking at this and we realized, we made the decision, we can't position this as a video game, we have to position it as something different, or we'll never get any retailer to carry it or a consumer to purchase it.
So, you know, we did talk about some of this a little while ago, right? But, you know, before we do that, who were these guys?
Oh, you know, the guy, I could look behind, I can look over here. The guy on the left that you were just listening to is Ron Judy. Ron, and then standing next to him is Al Stone. The two of those, Ron was vice president, I believe, of Chase Banking in New York, and Al was with Matson Alliance shipping from Japan into the U.S. They were friends through college at the University of Washington. They came up with this bright idea that they should bring arcade games into the U.S. And there's a kind of a fun story. The first one they brought in was a kind of a space type game. I don't remember the exact name of it, but it did terribly. And so, you know, they were not excited about that. So they were going to get another game that was going to come in, another arcade game. And I think it was kind of interesting when I heard the story about this. Ron was telling me one night after we had a couple of cocktails, and he was saying that there's one was going to come in, and it's going to be really good because it's going to be King Kong, and as everybody knows King Kong. They can't lose. This is great. So they borrowed money from family, friends, anywhere they could raise some money to do the letter of credit. When the container arrived and they opened it up, Al stood there and looked at it and just said to Ron, "We're screwed." You know, he said they forgot the name wrong. They're calling it Donkey Kong. What a stupid name. So, you know, you figured, of course, they realized how they're going to pay people back the money they borrowed to do it. So they took the arcade, and I think they took it up at north end of Lake Union, Gasworks, a bar up there.
Goldies.
And they put it in there, and it was a gold mine. It just started making money like hand over fist. And they decided that actually they got very lucky. And so the Al went on. It was really the strength in the arcade side. And then Ron and I started working together for the consumer side, you know, for the NES system. But we were all really close friends, and they were, Ron and Al, and just a little side note, were real characters. They were really great. And I should back up for a second and let you know that Al passed away about, I think it's about 4 years ago, 5 years ago. And then Ron just passed away a couple of years ago. But they were a pair because their other had a hobby was they owned racehorses, thoroughbred racehorses. And we'd be at Nintendo, we'd go to lunch, and then we had to go to the track and bet on the horses. So they were gamblers, and which we needed, I think, for this. You need a little bit of that.
I never put those two things together. Now that you say that, we've talked about how they gambled, and we've talked about how much the NES was a gamble, but I'd never made that connection before.
And when they hired me, it was funny. When they hired me, I was there the first week, and I was going to be in the consumer side. I was going to handle that. And we went and had lunch. They both took me out to lunch. They said, "We're going to teach you about how we work here at Nintendo." And we went over to a restaurant called Simon's and had a nice lunch. And then we went to the racetrack. And then I started questioning who I was working for. But it turned out they're very, very smart, very, very smart individuals. And we were all very, very close. Nintendo, and I'm going to interrupt. I mean, I'm going to cut your little thing off here.
Okay. You're the guest.
Nintendo was like, for all family. I mean, you had titles, but they didn't really matter that much. Everybody was like family, and all these years later, here we are still sitting here. Gail and I, Lance, we're all friends as if we were going back to work tomorrow. And that's what the whole company was like. And I think that's where a lot of the success initially was. We had a comfort level that if we put our heads together, and we understood a market and had the right product, we could be successful. Or I convinced them of that, I don't know which, but so they were two very, very special individuals. Just to conclude with that, after their success, Nintendo decided that they should buy them out, and they bought them out for quite a bit of money, and that's how then Minoru Arakawa, our president, got involved. So.
Anything you guys would like to add about these two?
Well, I would like to add that, well, Ron was our boss, so Ron was my boss. So although I often speak on this topic, I had a boss, and it was Ron Judy, and all of our big boss was Mr. Arakawa. So I love representing what we accomplished, but sometimes it makes it seem, sometimes I said I feel like I have imposter syndrome. It wasn't, there were a lot of people involved, and yeah, Ron was great, and he's the person who hired me there and was my boss through the era that we're talking about today.
All right. Lance, so at this point, Nintendo's decided to kind of go forward with designing a new system for the US market. These images, actually, Nintendo.com published in '97. Were you running Nintendo.com in '97? Was that?
Yeah.
Okay, so you published this, and this is from an article kind of going through some of your design tweaks at this time. So I don't know how well you can
Yeah.
see this.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, so you want to kind of talk us through what you're thinking?
Well, we're still exploring what should this video game system be. I think one of the names we had was Entertainment Learning System.
Right.
Can confirm, yes.
And,
That will come up on a later
And
slide.
I think everybody's kind of give a sour face about that, learning. Is that a good thing? We like the entertainment part of it. I was just joking the other night how every few days, somebody would come to my desk and say, here's the new name, and make a design based on this idea of what we're trying to go after, what kind of market. And we had two advantages, and one, as Ron mentioned earlier, Japan did things a little bit before us, so we got to see what worked.
Right.
And we were very small and nimble, so we could do things without a lot of infrastructure or waste of money, and could get them done quickly. So there's actually quite a few designs that floated around that were passed to me that agencies did. I don't know if you've seen them. I don't know some of the
Which
Japan.
agency?
Yeah. And most of them, and this is typical of agencies, you ask them to do something, and whatever is currently on the market that's similar, they just do a version of that. So guess what? It had fake wood grain, and it was kind of boxy. And switches were on the top. So I did do some designs like that, but I wanted to extend it in different areas. So I went rounded. I've got one there that looks like a record player.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the things the Famicom had was cradles for the controllers, and I like the idea of having it kind of neatly put away without them just sitting on the floor. The bottom center picture there, the actual controllers are on the left and right side,
Oh.
and the roundedness was comfortable in your hand, unlike the final design. Which
I've stared at that picture
Yeah.
and never realized those were
that's what
controllers.
those are. So there's a pocket underneath, and I think if you look at the upper left-hand corner, the middle, the line drawing, there's a coil cord actually in there. So the cord we ended up with, which is pretty long, we thought maybe the idea would put the coil in there and tuck it away.
Oh, and then this is what you ended up with.
That's
So-
where we ended up.
So do you want to tell us about the advanced video system?
Yeah, so, one of my big design influences was the Bang & Olufsen in the 70s. It's a Danish design. And I thought about something that's on your console or on your coffee table. It looks really nice. It looks high-end. And we knew we didn't want a kid's toy.
Right.
That we wanted it to look sleek and elegant and something people would leave out and not hide. It's a little contrary to the thing that ended up being something in kids' rooms, but we wanted this to be for everyone. So I wanted it sleek and high-end looking, high-tech, is what I think we used back then.
Right.
And so that first image, I think, was that's the way it was. And I don't know if you have the picture, but they all stack. So as a modular
don't.
system, the cassette deck that's in the middle of that was next to the console, and both of those stacked on the keyboard for the same width, so it made this nice little tower. And other than the power cord, it was supposed to all be wireless.
Yeah.
Infrared.
Well, and in fact, we're going to talk about the wireless in just a second
Yeah.
here.
And I'll mention one thing.
Oh, please.
Every one of these pictures probably has a different plus control pad.
Oh,
That
sure.
one's square.
Yeah.
As I grew up playing Atari, actually, I started playing Magnavox in '72. And I didn't like those little dials, and I didn't like the Atari stick because my arm would get tired after 5 minutes. I wanted something easier to play over a long term. And the Famicom had the little plus key in there. A little bit small and untested in the American market. So I watched a lot of people play games that we were testing. We didn't have an official game tester at the time, but just watched people play. And did it work? So I tried hexagon shape, and that's the square, and yeah.
And that's where you landed, was the
That
square.
was for that
Yeah.
model, that's
Yeah.
where we ended. Yeah. That's because it does diagonals. You couldn't, the original plus key did up and down, left and right really well, but not the diagonals.
Yeah. So you did a focus group in November in Los Angeles for the advanced video system. So I've read through the report. So there was a really heavy emphasis on the games being programmable, right? And that would be through sort of the keyboard and what it ended up being, which is, Excite Bike. You can kind of put the tracks together, right? And kind of the takeaway was that the kids love the idea of programming games, but just like kids today that think they want to make video games when they grow up, you show them how you actually have to program them, and they go, "Oh, never mind." And at the time, just kind of getting the read of the room, kids were, for the most part, bored with their existing video games. A lot of these respondents had Ataris, but they could see themselves getting a new console. Parents, not as much, turns out. But I would like to read some of the more colorful quotes from your focus group respondents. This is actually from the report, which is a number of parents of teenage group members were asked to complete a self-administered questionnaire. Among the 21 who responded, 3 said they would buy a home video game system. Not off to a good start. Right? And this kind of goes to the market woes that you were talking about earlier, right, Bruce?
Yeah, we knew that we're going to probably fail. You can tell by this. And yet, we were either smart enough or stupid enough that we decided if we just keep pushing along, we'll be successful. And what we did learn from focus groups is that, if we did a focus group in here, what we think we get as an answer, because you're in this business, probably would not be what we get. You may not be thinking of everything, and you have different opinions, and we have different opinions. It's these designs you're seeing. Lance was a fantastic part of Nintendo, and he would get design changes, not quarterly. Not monthly. It could be daily, and he would smile and just make them. I've never known someone to be like, normally they don't smile in the other company I've ever been in. They're not happy to, I did it, this is it. No, he said, he would make any changes, and then we always were taking everybody's opinions. So we had focus groups. I will tell a story about a focus group in a moment. We'll get to it. It's kind of hilarious what happened to it, but we had some positive and some negatives. Yeah. So.
When you do focus groups, you end up with the same answer every time. And over the years, when you do a focus group, you get, I want the same thing I like now,
right,
for less money.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's what you learn.
You did.
So everything after that is your gut and your experience, right, and what you can bring to the table. And we've all seen products that now we have in our pockets that we didn't know we wanted. And you eventually find out that it's a great thing.
All right, let's get some quotes. Yeah. This was in relation to the wireless components and why a kid really liked the fact that there were no wires. I will read it. "I have to beat the dog for chewing on the wires. I'm sorry, dog." I'd like to check it out, but there's a lot of stuff out there that calls itself educational, and it's not very good. Tale as old as time in terms of software, right? This is my favorite. "I'd buy one if I had $500 because I'd still have $400 to spend on something else." So, a little harsh. 1 second. I'm sorry I keep going back and forth, but like I said, I don't have that presenter view. All right, I know where we are now. So you mentioned some names earlier. So you did propose 20 names to this focus group. And I have the rankings. This is 3 through 19 here. So the CVS, I don't think would have worked so well, but
the drugstore owned it, so we couldn't really do it.
But educational learning system actually ranked number 4. I'm a particular fan of the Dream Machine. I think it's a little bold. Right. Yeah. But ultimately, actually, the number 1 most voted one was the Advanced Video System, which is what you went with. I don't know if it was because of the focus group, but
Probably not.
probably not.
It wasn't.
Okay, I said that was 3 through 20, and this is number 1. What about? Oh, please go
No,
ahead.
I was going to say, I don't know if we'll get to this. By
Yeah.
the way, I don't know if you can tell, but the controllers dock in there too.
Oh, I couldn't tell.
Nobody
Where?
knows that. They're in the front.
Yeah.
There's little barn doors there.
Yep.
Oh my gosh,
And both controllers fit inside.
Yeah.
I had no idea. Yeah. Breaking news.
Yep.
All right.
So a couple
Please.
things about the focus groups. One thing that's not in there that was a funny thing. So because I did the focus groups in Pasadena and then in New Jersey.
We got the
which Bruce
Jersey
came
one
to
coming up.
The Jersey one.
Anyway, one of the kids that was about 12, who was kind of rowdy, and he he said he knew we were behind the window, and that he wanted to show me the controller, and he drew a phallic symbol and put it on the window. My favorite feedback.
Wow.
And beyond
That was not in the report.
I don't think
No, we
so.
skipped it.
And beyond that, a comment I want to make about the name, because it came back later several times, was Mr. Arakawa ended up feeling committed that the word Nintendo would be in the products, and the same thing happened with Nintendo Power.
Yeah.
We wanted to call it like Power Player,
Right.
and he said he wanted the word Nintendo on the masthead. So I think part of all these names, they don't have the word Nintendo, but
That's
that
'cause
was
I didn't like
important
that.
to
I
him.
don't think it's a good idea to put your corporate name into the product.
They kind of ended.
Because if your product doesn't do well, you're
Right.
you're diminishing your company. So it's always good to have a brand be separate from your
But
company.
that continued
I know.
throughout his
That's an
tenure.
argument we've
It
had
was a
many times.
gamble.
Yeah.
So, like we said, number 1 was the ABS. The number 2, I love this. Bruce,
Yes.
where did you work after Nintendo?
I was the president of Sega. So, yeah, I had to deal with a lot of this. So, yeah. I should say, even when I started Sega, we were such close friends, all of us. You'd go to a trade show like Consumer Electronics Show, and we all hung out together, all the Sega and Nintendo people. If you had to go to the convention, if the Nintendo limousine was out there in the Sega pit, we just took it. Or, you just did what you want. And we were very, very concerned, which hopefully there's no, well, it doesn't matter now, the Justice Department wouldn't care. But we used to actually have little caucuses on the side. Your cartridge is still at this price, and your machine is still this price. Because we didn't want to destroy the industry. The product was $139. Retailers were excited now, they're finally making money. But there's always going to be somebody that, if I'd have dropped Sega's price to $99, that would have had to trigger. So we did have a close relationship, always, but the Genesis.
You broke
had a
federal
play-
law by
Yeah,
discussing.
yeah,
Is this Rico, I think?
yeah, probably about everything, yeah. So I tried to, I'm going to get called out of here in a minute. So, no, but it was interesting, and I'm not going to get into Sega, but it was kind of interesting when they wanted me to go to work for Sega. I wasn't going to, and they said, "Have you ever wondered why you were so successful? Do you think you were just lucky at Nintendo?" And then they paused. Well, you start thinking, well, could I do that again or not do it again? And then they told me how much money they wanted to pay me, so I figured I could do it again. But we'll get off that now. We're not talking Sega.
Consumer Electronics Show's coming up. Can't wait to see what's behind the veil. Gail, is this advertising you were running at this point? This consumer ad?
Not consumer.
Oh, sorry.
ads. Yeah, trade show.
I got
ads.
mixed up because this ran in Consumer Electronics Monthly.
Consumer
But it
Electronics
was a
Monthly
trade.
wasn't for consumers.
Right.
The fact the
Right.
electronics were for consumers.
Right. But yeah, you guys are getting ready to go to CES
Right.
Yep.
and debut the system.
Yeah, but big secret.
Which you did. So something I'm not really clear about. So a lot of times when I hear about the January Consumer Electronics shows, it was more kind of hopes and dreams than actual products, right? And it's more gauging consumer interest than actually trying to sell to stores. Was that the idea here, or were you trying to sell the ABS?
Well, it wasn't the first CES one too was in Las Vegas, wasn't it? That was the
This is the
this
Vegas
is one.
one.
Oh, I just saw
Yeah.
January. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So we went there, and if I could just throw a few things there real quick, we had no price. We tell no one what it cost. We had a beautiful booth. Fortunately, Lance and his team made the stuff work, and and it was really nice. But people would say, "Well, how much is it going to cost?" We wouldn't give them price, which drove people nuts. But one of the things we did see was, we're at the winter show in Las Vegas, and you watch, there's men there, and women there, and they'll be like at the golf game, and they've got money on top of the game in our booth, and they're gambling. And I remember Ron and I standing back there going, if they could put that much money here, we got a winner. You know, we were pretty excited about it. But it was those types of things. And Gail did very professional marketing stuff, but ours was more freewheeling. You know, kind of, they put money on it, we'll be successful. And I don't know who the model was in there either.
So I would say the comment that you normally would just be showing hopes and dreams, that does seem like what we all hear about CES now is something very
Right.
future. But I think that the year when we were there, people did have order sheets and expect to talk to retailers.
Yeah.
So what Bruce was just referring to was, it was unusual that we were spending all this money and taking no orders.
Right.
And didn't.
no prices.
Yeah, no, didn't really know what we were selling or configuration or how many games or really anything. And then, is this a good time to talk about the Sharp TVs?
Yes, I was going to ask, yes. So we okay.
So we did not have working AVSs at
Right.
all.
Oh, yeah.
And so what we had in Japan was Sharp TVs that you could put a Famicom cartridge in, and then we had just a shell that slid over
It's a well-designed shell.
and so I guess the controllers the wires had to go through the shell and
Right.
into the TV.
Right.
And then, like a week later or so, the journalist from Consumer Electronics Monthly came, and I was touring him around the office, and our office was nothing. I mean, keep in mind, this is like a giant warehouse, probably bigger than this room, with people, you know, packaging up arcade games and stuff. Anyway, we go up in this loft, it's just something to what, and all the Sharp TVs are there from CES, and the guy, he's like, what are these TVs?
Yeah.
Like, and I'm back to don't look behind the curtain moment,
Right,
you know?
right.
It was really, but yeah, there was no price and there was actually no product, so that was,
It was very hard to keep a straight face when you're talking to one of the buyers of the major retailers, and he goes, the graphics are incredible. I said, yeah, I know, they look real, don't they? And he goes, yeah, oh yeah, just like the arcade, yeah. You know, so we did it, and that probably had helped us, but I was holding my breath the whole time, that, you know, would they keep working? And so we did. You know, I've talked to people in big ad agencies in the past, they said, you guys are really smart what you did. I think a lot of it was luck, too, you know, just being a little lucky now and then. But, and Gail and Lance and the teams, there were not just three of us, there was a lot of other people. Everybody always believed that we'll be successful. And I think if you believe you'll be successful, you will be successful. I sound like one of those motivational speakers now, but I'm not, you know. But I think it's true. If you have that mindset, and we did have that mindset within the whole company, across the board, and that's what made it unique. And what really made it more than anything else was our president. And we don't say a lot about Minoru Arakawa, president of our company, but you know, he was not really a video game guy. He had his degree in MIT in engineering. He'd built a hotel that I stayed at in Germany. You know, we're like, oh, great, he's going to do the video games. But we were all on a level. I mean, it was just that uniqueness that we had. I knew other video game companies. I knew, you know, here, nobody had that like we had. That was a unique feature that we had. So I'll let you continue, and then I have more information.
Lance, did you have anything to add about CES? I thought I saw a twinkle in your eye.
Yeah.
Other than the fact, I mean, as a product designer, going to trade shows, I think 90% of the stuff is not real. And now, like, they don't even sell watches and a lot of product. They'll just show you a rendering, and then they'll take the orders and go back and make the product. And so back then, I don't think, maybe there's expectation you're going to make this thing, but I don't know how many things we've seen that never get to market.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's true.
This was a press kit that we actually recently dug up. I think I texted this to you when I found it, Gail. I was like, look what I found. So thank you to Roger Sharp, if he's watching, for holding on to this in his basement. So that was winter. By summer, this is actually the brochure from Summer CES in June. So you now have the Nintendo Entertainment System, sort of, right? So I don't know how well you can see that,
Yeah.
Lance, but that
Yeah.
looks to me like the ABS with some wires in it.
Yeah, so that's exactly right. And
I'm sorry, dog. I'm sorry to the dog who must be beaten because the wires are here now.
Yeah.
I was just thinking that gun there.
I was kind
Oh,
of
yeah.
questioning that gun too.
That,
What do we
that
have the
actually,
gun as
we didn't
plugged
talk
in?
much about that, but that the handle folds down. So you could
Yeah.
use a wand.
Right.
We think about other games that you have a wand in, or open it up and use it like a gun.
I had seen a drawing where it folds
Yeah.
in, but I hadn't considered that it was usable just as a
Right.
wand.
Right.
Okay. What did you have in mind as a use case for that? Did you have any software support for that?
No, and a lot of this, interesting when we build the games, the game developers say, I have this idea, but it might take a specialized controller, or the other way around. We can add buttons to this. Can you make them work in the game? So there's this back and forth.
Yeah.
Mr. Miyamoto is an industrial designer too, so a lot of times he would say, hey, can we add a couple buttons to the controller? And
Yeah. Well, speaking of hardware without a lot of software support, there's the biggest introduction here would be Rob the robot, and let's hear from another one of your former colleagues talk about Rob.
And originally, the robot had been developed to make it different than just a video game, so that it actually did something different. Well, robot turned out to be a service pain in the butt because, the lighting, fluorescent lighting and so forth would mess with it, and it wouldn't follow commands from the TV screen. We even had to come out with what we called sunglasses for the robot, so it would actually cut down on some of the light levels. So it was an interesting product.
So this is the best photo I had of John Peterson from the 80s. Sorry to Rob Thompson for crossing his face out. But before we talk about Rob, tell us about JP, John Peterson.
Do you wanna- So John is employee number 2. Employee number 1's name is Joni Casaza. And he, at the time, was running the tech services group for Everything Arcade. And ultimately, he continued in that side, and Rob Thompson, who you see there, moved into the actual services side, which was game counseling and customer service. But he, the reliability of the product and all of that side, and making sure, it was a big thing that people would maybe play the games and want to return them just because they were done with them. This is pre-rental era. And so John was in charge of various ideas that helped Nintendo not have problems with reliability or returns, that kind of thing. So he played a very big role in both arcade and home side.
So yeah, let's talk about Rob.
Yeah. We'll talk about Rob. I'll start real quick about Rob.
Okay.
When I saw Rob the robot, I thought, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. First of all, I'm trying to sell a video game while Atari is dying, and I got a robot. It was that I can't play. I mean, I tried. It was not easy in the whole thing. However, sometimes you get something given to you that you don't realize the value until later. And, when Rob came about, he was a great marketing piece. When we first launched it, we had retail stores that had displays put in them, in what they call risers, and there'd be maybe 30 or 40 Rob robots in the window, and they all synchronize and move together. So now people are like, what is this? They never had to play it, but they thought it was pretty cool they had a robot. And so he actually had a big effect. I didn't think he would. And from an advertising standpoint, you know more than I, but I'm going to hit on this one anyhow, because it really helped what I was trying to do, was our first ad that we ran was in New York, and it showed, if you recall...
It's coming. It's coming later. I got it.
Okay. I'll leave it right there.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll say something about it. So Rob is a fishing lure.
Right. Okay, that's a good one.
I always said Trojan horse,
Yeah,
but
no,
fishing
he's a
horse.
fishing lure.
Yeah.
And there's two kinds of people in the world. There's, you make people want things, that's a salesperson.
Right.
Or you make things people want, that's a designer.
Right.
And Rob is somebody who makes people want a thing.
Yeah.
That's what he does.
Do you have any design claim over Rob?
The little red logo.
Yeah, the little red
Yeah.
logo down
Gail and
there.
I did that name.
Yeah, the name, the robotic operating buddy
Right.
it was hard coming up with a name for this guy. And yeah, like I said, using it as the feature, was awesome. But even, as everyone knows, we did these mall tours and trying to demo R.O.B. I hope everyone in this room has seen a working R.O.B. But
I kind of hope you haven't. Let the magic live in your hearts.
It's so painfully slow. It's so slow.
Well, on that note,
You'll see R.O.B. Okay.
so I don't have a video, sorry, but I do have your Paramus, New Jersey focus group. Paramus.
People from New Jersey. Paramus.
Sorry, Jersey people. So at this point, according to the report, you're already planning a New York test launch as of July. So this was like pretty quick after CES. That you and just maybe back up for a second here.
Yeah,
Like we're just 6 to 7 months past that CES show, with the ABS, and it's like you have a system that's completely different, and you're launching in 3 months.
It seems surprising today when you have a laptop to make graphics on. I mean, this idea that we made packaging and brand identity and everything in really like 3 months and got it shipped from Japan. It's just bizarre. I don't know how it happened.
Yeah. So at this point, like I said, New York's planned. The plan was to launch it with the robot, which didn't have a name, at least in the thing. And the Zapper was going to be sold separately, was the plan at the time. And then really the focus of the focus group was to see if the robot sold the system, right? So there's a quote specifically from the researchers. But yeah. R.O.B. was lacking personality. I thought that was a little rough.
Right.
Poor guy. This was from the kids. I wouldn't consider that a robot. If it doesn't move, it's just a toy.
Right.
It takes hours to move one little piston. And then this is from the parents. It's not specifically about R.O.B. This is really a resistance to more video games, right? I had forgotten, really, that at this point in time, there really was only one generation of video game consoles, right? So the idea that a video game consumer is on an endless cycle, right, where the hardware refreshes every 4 to 5 years, that wasn't a thing yet, right?
Right.
So all of this feedback is basically well, I've already invested in the Atari ecosystem. Why would I get another system? Is that something that you had to deal with the stores as well?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think the thing that he talked about was, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but he had the Atari 2600, and he had the 5200 and the 78 or 70, whatever it was. And they had more processors, but they still looked the same. And you kept buying them, and it looked the same. The graphics weren't changing. I think that was really a lot of the disappointment that you had. From
Atari fans just storming out of the room right now.
Right, but it was pressing for them. So now all of a sudden we got a product that we're going to sell you that has a robot, and and its head doesn't move, but its arms move, and it's hard to use, and it's slow, and it's so it was kind of like you haven't taken these steps forward. Was what I got from a sales standpoint. So we had to do certain things then to kind of get across that this was not a entertainment piece for the robot. There's a lot of other things. And so we used it a lot as a front end.
Yeah.
We didn't really use it as a sales piece. Where our sales piece would be the quality of the games being identical to the arcade game. And then the other thing was we had the light gun, which can I talk about that now? Is that okay?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. We did in Paramus, New Jersey, we used a company back there, and Ron and I did one of those. You'd set it up for us, but we did one. Now, if you're from New Jersey, I don't want you to be offended, but I'm going to tell you how it went. So they bring in the mothers, a group of mothers in there who have kids. Just the mothers came in, and we're going to tell them about our game system. And we have a light gun, so you can play duck hunt. We were really excited about that. We get this thing off about the light gun, and about probably half, or at least a third, of women go, in New Jersey, a nice accent, no guns coming to my house in Jersey. My husband's got one, we don't need another. It's like, no, this is a light gun. No, to them it's another gun. So we knew right there we had to change it. We couldn't call it a light gun. We had to change the name. And so when we then, second group came in, I think we used the alternate name, we used a different name, and they all loved it. So just that, this is the importance of focus groups. I did not realize how important they were. except with Gail getting this going and then being able to witness it and going, my God, you really get a lot of information. You know, you have to sometimes filter it, but you do get a lot of information, so that's why we changed the name of light gun.
You know, they had the gun in Japan that looked like a Colt 40 pistol.
Yeah.
And they like guns in Japan because you can't have guns, so it's.
Right. Here it was like, yeah, right.
But we looked at it and said, no, we can't make that be in our
Right,
market. So
right.
got to do a total redesign on it. And you saw the first one that collapsed, but
Yeah, I should have put a picture here, but
Yeah.
we do have one later if you
yeah,
want to
yeah.
talk about it.
So both the name and the style got to be very futuristic and it matched the design of the hardware.
Then this is kind of a, you know, the conclusion of the report. I find it really interesting. It's kind of what we all think, which is, you know, the market's hard to crack. People don't really want a new video game system. But if the novelty of the robot might get people interested. So, I mean, talking about sort of filtering, you know, information from the focus groups. I mean, is this kind of something you guys took to heart? Is this?
Have we
is
just
this
doubled
kind of
down on
belief?
that?
Yeah.
Oh, we'll take that challenge.
The verbal response, so like Bruce said, Bruce was there and Ron, and I think Howard Lincoln, Mr. Arco, I can't remember exactly who all the executives were there though that time.
Yeah.
And they said, one of them said, so what result would you expect with this type of a focus group reaction?
And I have an exact quote
you have the
from
quote,
it was from
okay.
Ron Judy from years and years ago, and this is how he did it.
Ron.
Like I said, so we took that and we doubled that. I put the robot on top of the display.
Yeah.
And like Bruce said, he's in the stores. And
Yeah, you just, you know, if, like I said before,
It's
you
an attraction.
Yeah.
you have
It's an
to
attraction.
you have to plow through certain things and truly believe. I mean, there was many nights that I went home going, "What the hell did I do here?" You know, we've got a robot that just is the dumbest there. But at the same time, in the back of your head, going, "But that's one of those key things that's different." But our biggest thing was, and you know, and everyone knew it. They knew it. Ron and I knew it, and all this was the quality of the game. There was no other product out there that displayed a game on your TV the exact same way it was displayed in an arcade. There was none. And if we could get that message across, then, you know, it would, number one, it would help us sell it. Number two, if you recall, in that era, there were arcades the kids went to. They got in trouble there. They thought of as drugs things started happening there. There was all these bad situations, so they wanted to, you know, now they don't have to go to the arcades because they have the quality at home. I think those were where we started, all the pieces started to come together in your head and going, okay, I see how I can present this.
that was one of your pitches?
Yeah,
To
it
the
was.
retailer.
Yeah, I tried them all. But, it was, but you know, when you get that across, they start looking at it going, you know, you're exactly right, because everything else we've sold that died did not copy exactly what the arcade looked like. And so
Well, okay, but you cheated, right? Like, you know, like it's easy to make a home game look exactly like an arcade game when you make an arcade game out of a home game from Japan.
yeah,
No, but that first show where you have the guys in their suits come up, they always ask, what game system is this?
Yeah.
I was there at that show, and they were amazed at how it looked.
Yeah.
oh yeah.
And they thought there's a computer down there running this. They didn't understand, and they just kind of scratched their head and like, what
Well, there
company? What
was. That's why they were
company?
scratching their heads.
Yeah.
If they looked down, they
Well,
would
no,
have seen,
no,
you know,
but
But that was the same system in there.
No,
You didn't
no,
cheat
yeah.
on that till the 64.
No, it really, yeah, I think it really was, we had the product, we knew we had the product was great, and it was just a matter of how do we market it then. And that's where stuff fell on Gail, and, you know, make sure that the message, and we had a TV commercial that was, and you probably don't have that.
No,
here.
we do. We do. It's coming. It's coming.
Okay.
Be patient.
Get ahead of myself here. No, but we had a TV commercial that addressed exactly what I just talked about.
Yeah.
The kids in the arcades, they don't come home when they're supposed to. All those things that everybody, parents, didn't like. So, you know, and it was just like the kids were going, well, I go to the arcades because that Atari doesn't work. You know, it's not like it's so much more fun at the arcade because it's real. It's not real. So that's what we saw, a window of opportunity there.
Yeah.
So hit it.
All right, Lance, finish your work here.
So somehow it magically turns into this box. From this beautiful Danish influence design. Well, the Famicom had been on the market for a while, and they were worried about stuff falling into the cartridge. And it's sitting open all the time unless you've moved that little door over. And an engineer in Japan, whose name shall be not repeated, decided that we wanted to go with a different kind of connector. It's the zero force connector. So instead of scraping the connectors as you plug the cartridge in, it gently goes in at an angle, and then you push down and it pushes against the connectors. That requires a lot taller housing, and it did kind of look like a videotape machine, so there's some of that. It wasn't designed to look like a videotape machine, but I was, after all those, about a year and a half of pre-design and development and all these renderings I did, we had a very little time to turn it into what this is. So I worked with the engineer in Japan, cleaned it up. If you didn't ever see the previous one, you'd go, it's fine, but I always think of what it could have been.
Like any good artist,
Yeah.
you're not satisfied with the final
Not
product,
satisfied.
and that's okay.
Yeah.
I think there's some fun sort of pre-production-y things here, like the cartridges aren't quite right,
So that picture's interesting. The R.O.B robot's real.
but the NES is a wood block, I think, is what I read on the website.
The zapper gun, the cartridges, and the actual hardware are all models that I built, or a person I was working with at the time built. So that's high-density foam, urethane foam. This is before digital printing. You could hire model makers to do things like this for the industry, but it's cheaper to do it in-house, and I like building things, so.
Kind of a fun little Easter egg if you squint. The two cartridges are Duck Hunt and Entertainment Pack. That one never came out.
You got to see it. I remember that.
I think the templates on the controllers and the color that we ended up as our accent, and
Yeah, it fits that whole theme with the black. So the gun has the little black top there. That's the same as the front of the NES hardware.
Oh, and that's great on the retail, right?
because
Yeah.
it required an extra piece. So there's always cost control. By the way, you know what the most expensive part of a controller is? It's not the plastic housing. It's not the PC board inside. It's the cord. And when we didn't go the infrared controller, infrared from the AVS one, we knew that in the American market, people had bigger houses, and in Japan, they sit on the floor in front of the TV. But in the American market, there's a coffee table usually and a couch. And so we said, okay, we don't have infrared, we need long cords. So there's a 3-meter, 9-foot cord on the original NES controllers, which is, now you're wrapping them up, you're like, this is long. But it was designed for our market. But we gave that up in the AVS to NES transition, the infrared.
So it's not just the externals that have to change, right, in order to sort of get this product approved and ready for the U.S. market. There is whatever the FCC is, right? Were you part of that process as well, sort of getting FCC compliance? Is there anything interesting to say about FCC compliance, or should we move on?
Move on.
All right.
I mean, it's just like your
Radio frequency interference or something, the metal shielding that's in there.
I did appreciate the fact that, there's PAL and NTSC, so when Japan would do a version, I got the opportunity to say, well, you can't say that we're saving costs by using your design in our market. If we all had the same ideas for what looks good, we'd all drive the exact same car. So you can design different products for different markets in the world, and you'll sell more product. And the consumer will like it better because it's something they have ownership in and appreciate. So I used the fact that there's a different FCC requirements in different markets of the world to say, we're going to make a different design overall, because the cost isn't that much different. And it wasn't until, 3 generations later, Super NES, we almost did the same thing. N64, we had worldwide release.
Yeah. And then actually something that is really important here is what's represented on the bottom right. That's what's called a CIC chip. So the Famicom didn't have a way of making unauthorized cartridges not boot, right? Like you could just burn ROMs and put them on a PCB and it would just boot on a Famicom. The NES had this sort of handshake system that was developed in NCL, I'm pretty sure, that your console would talk to your cartridge to say, hey, are you real? Send me, the secret code, right? And it would send it back and it'd go, okay, you're in, you're good. And it would boot the game. That was a new idea, like in the world, right? Like we kind of take for granted, I think, that like a video game console is a walled garden and you have to go through the manufacturer to publish for it. But that wasn't a given yet. And this is something that Nintendo, I think, identified as being necessary for entering the US market.
There was a lot of concern about quality of the games. We saw what was on Atari system where they didn't have control of what was published. And even our packaging reflected the image that we wanted to convey to the consumer about what they're going to get when they buy it. And having some control over what was licensed and could play on our system was very important in terms of maintaining that quality.
And it's probably at least partially why at first, and we were just talking about this last night, you didn't have any third parties at launch. You were just going with the software that you made, you controlled. So you speaking of packaging, right? Like
Yeah.
you do have to sort of redesign the look and feel of the product on the shelves to match the U.S. market. So why is Mario jumping into lava?
I think that's just pretty. And to this day, it's funny, I look at this now. The Japanese market, and we all have anime out there to look at, they like to have all the characters in the game in this image. The main hero is the biggest. There's a looming bad guy in the background.
Right.
And any character you might interact with is somewhere on the screen. And designer I worked with, Ross Harai at Nintendo for years, always said from a distance it just looks like bubble gums. You can't tell what's there, and even at retail, as you walk up, it's just a busy mess. So we wanted something iconic that you could see from a distance. We also wanted something that didn't oversell the image of the game once you put it into the system.
Right.
Well, and that's something that, I mean, yeah, I think every time I talk to anyone that worked with you guys, that was a big deal, was that you felt that a big part of the market woes of Atari was a misrepresentation of the games on the packaging, right?
Definitely.
Look at the E.T. game.
Yeah.
Should I go back to that slide in the
Yeah,
landfill?
you should.
E.T.'s the most is that one is, everyone knows that one so well, but it is true that the packaging misrepresented, but all the marketing. So if you were buying a game, the TV ads or any kind of marketing for it would kind of more reflect the way that the graphic on the packaging was. So like, let's say with E.T., maybe with that license, they got some E.T. actual movie footage, and then they could show that and say you can play this at home. So people really went pretty far on all marketing, not just packaging. A few other things about that package. So in this short timeline in New York, so Gears Gross was the name of what the advertising agency we selected, and I'm going to give credit to someone who's also no longer with us. Lou Martin did all the package design, and they probably presented a few different ideas. Mr. Arakawa liked that this idea represented computer pixels, which might feel futuristic. But you can see some of the other things that were designed. There's things about the color scheme, and if we made these, the little symbols for whether it was an action game, arcade game, a sports game, and they were color-coded into categories. That was because it would help make the library feel bigger. You would kind of have some feeling like, oh,
Like
they're
there's
gonna
the promise of more.
yeah, there's going to add more to these categories. And then the quality seal, Ron Judy asked me to have them come up with something that represented what the good housekeeping seal of approval represents in the U.S. And we came up with that. So Lance and I were talking about that he was at Nintendo a lot longer than me, and he said he continued to fight for it. But it's still today, if you buy a T-shirt with a hang tag or something, that
Right.
seal is still on there. And so that's kind of a proud thing, continuing to do that.
All right, should we hear from another one of your former colleagues?
I always remember this when we were standing around looking at an NES system for the first time and kind of goofing around with it and preparing to sell it in New York. There was about 12 of us that actually moved to New York for 4 months to launch it. And I remember one of the management guys looked at me and he goes, "Do you have any idea what's going to happen to this company if this thing takes off?" And and none of us did. And then we went out and we launched it, and it was like the hardest 4 months of my life. I only had 2 days off the entire time, but it was well worth it. And it was a great experience to be able to participate in that.
So that's Don James. That's what he looked like in '85. And talking about heading to New York, which we're about to get into. But before we do that, who was Don James? Well, who is Don James? Excuse me.
He was my boss. He hired me. He's an industrial designer, but I was one of, I don't know if I was one of the first. I'm employee number 12, but a lot of people did. I think you were probably hired for your professionalism, and Gail, I know you were. A lot of people were there, like sweeping floors, and then said, "Oh, well, you can do this now," and they worked their way up into other positions within the company. So I was actually hired to do design work as a designer, which there weren't many at the time.
At what age? Biggest
Oh, I was 22.
22?
I just turned 23, I think, 22, yeah.
He was young.
I was an intern from the University of Washington, just temporary, and I didn't think it would turn in. And then I stopped working there, but then later, I guess, I don't remember what happened, I reapplied or something like that.
That's because we moved to the new offices. That was it.
Yeah.
That was probably it,
Yeah.
He had bigger
But back
offices.
to Don.
And so he wanted a designer, and interviewed me, and I ended up getting the job.
So Don
He
worked at
championed a lot of
Nintendo.
stuff. It's
Yeah,
very
long
powerful
time.
to have two industrial designers who understood that part of the industry working together. So I could do work, and he could easily translate what he heard in meetings to me and Bruce too, and then we turned that into physical things.
So, welcome to New York. So, thank you to Rob Thompson for these photos of the warehouse in Hackensack. I know you two were there. Did you make it out at all?
I stayed back in Seattle, and I would get strange requests for things, and they would tell me horror stories about what they were doing.
Well, we do have some horror stories, and well, first of all, here's the main entrance to the warehouse. Rob wrote up some really great memories. I was going to read them, but I'm having tech issues. But from memory, he told me they found snakes in the bathroom.
Well, then they would tell me that there were snakes in the bathroom, and I often was staying in the city with the ad agency, but then when I'd come out, I couldn't go to the bathroom all day because they would tell me that there were snakes and rats in the bathroom.
Wait, it wasn't we've solved the snake and rats problem. It's just a matter of fact
It
that
was
there
just a
are.
fact, yeah.
They were just garter snakes. There weren't anything that were going to bite you. It was just like, One of the things with this picture, since you have it up there, I want to tell a little story about
Yeah.
when the first containers arrived with the games, and Ron and I don't think you have a picture of the two of us, but we're standing at the loading dock as the first container backs up.
I do have this photo.
Okay. This is how times have changed.
This is your life.
Yeah, times have changed now because both Ron and I have taken our suit coats off. We still have our ties on and all, We're going to unload a container. And as we're unloading it, you all know what the Nintendo box looks like, and it's kind of like that silver, where it says Nintendo on it and all that. Well, we started stacking the boxes in the back there. Well, it wasn't this well lit. It was dark because it was almost nighttime when we were unloading that container. And once again, the great words came out, we're screwed again, because when there's no lights on it, the gray didn't show what the name of the product was. All we had was black boxes back there, and it was like, oh no. So we immediately found lighting, so we'd be safe. But there was little things like that. You think it would, you're not thinking of that. Stores are bright.
Yeah.
But if it's in a dark area, it didn't look quite right. But to show you how we were real company people too, it was hard work to unload those containers. And these were not people that were back there. They were everybody from engineers to you name it in the company to unload this stuff. So Ron and I decided to celebrate. So we went and bought a whole bunch of bottles of Dom Perignon and put it in a big ice bucket so that when they got done, actually they started drinking when they were doing it. But because
You weren't drinking.
we were in Hackensack, New Jersey, come on, But, it added a little to the excitement because this was I'd sold it into some big places there, and so they were ready for it, and, everybody wanted to celebrate this whole event, and so that was the most depressing place you ever could be in.
Well, speaking of depressing, Hurricane Gloria, paid you a visit, so that happened. Tell us about the toxic waste barrel.
That's still a story we hear about.
Were either of you there for the barrel?
No, it just,
No, and Dawn and Rob can't agree on how the barrel got
There was
there.
a
Just
debate.
the other day.
it just showed up, so,
Yeah.
there's no
Just
Just
debate.
showed up.
There
Well,
was something, it wasn't some kind of story, I didn't realize it said toxic, sorry, but it was, there was a barrel that was out there that had snakes in it. And, no, we tipped it over, that's what I remember, and they came out, so,
So I'm assuming that's Dawn and Rob Langdon.
yeah, and I can't tell who's in the middle, unfortunately.
yeah, I don't know. It was like,
But, well, I don't know if it was actually toxic, but someone thought it was at least and
Yeah.
took it away. Oh, yeah, and this is from Rob. There's a Wizard of Oz like chant working in the warehouse. Rats, snakes, and toxic waste, oh my. But I just want to make sure
Sounds
we're
like
not.
a Howard Phillips.
I know, it does. doesn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
All right, here's your photos of. Hang on. There you are in your
Okay,
your tie.
yeah, this is us, and this is how you dress it in Nintendo Unload a Container. And when I saw that picture, I can't believe we didn't take our ties off or anything, but actually when it first got there, we had our suit coats on too, but it was,
But then you broke out the Dom Perignon.
yeah, it was a
Clothes
constant
come off.
operation. I mean, it really was. I mean, Ron and Al would only drink Dom Perignon. That's when I learned there was different types of champagne from those two guys. So,
Pretty cute.
yeah.
Gail, I can see you down there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She knows how she's
had to-
nervously, what's around her, she's looking down kind of.
Don't take me to the warehouse.
Yeah. So,
Just below the knees are the snakes. They're cut off.
right. Okay.
So yeah, so October '85. The reason we're here today, right, is that you guys launch in New York. It's a test market. A lot of people don't know this, but it's and maybe you want to explain what an ADI is, but it's the New York ADI, right?
I mean, whatever the metro market, where however broad your
Right.
media reaches. So if you're advertising on TV in New York, how far geographically would that go? So the places that Bruce sold to, those would
Right.
only be within where the influence of the marketing would reach.
Got it. So it's kind of the blast radius of advertising in New York City, right? But okay.
We did, and which is not in your probably thing here, is how we paid for the advertising. We were on
not.
we had TV.
Finally, you got something that's not in here.
Good. I knew I'd get on something. Remember the bartering? Remember that?
Barter advertising, yeah.
Yeah, we didn't have a lot of money at Nintendo, so we bartered for TV time. And, basically how it worked was, there was a guy named Alan Bobot, and he would buy all the time, and then if you needed so many hours, and you want to hit certain GRPs and all this type of stuff, he'd buy the time for us, and we'd give him cartridges or games, and then he'd sell those to Toys R Us. That's how that whole thing worked. It was kind of crazy. So,
I've never heard of anything like that in my life.
yeah. So it worked.
Shocking to me.
And what happened was our ads started running at 2 a.m. in the morning, which there weren't a lot of kids awake at that point, or even parents awake.
Those were the bad kids in the arcade you were talking about.
Now, here's the thing I don't think you even knew, because we never said anything about this. But Ron and I were talking. He said, we can't have them at 2 a.m. because it won't work. I said, well, I'll just go over to, I think it was WABC was running them. I'll go over there and talk to this guy, the boss there, and tell him he has to change that. Kind of naive as I was. And I went over to WABC on Avid Americas, and I walked in with a game cartridge and everything and said, I'd like to see your station manager. I'm an advertiser. Now, I didn't mention the fact we were bartering and we were getting our ads in there. They would not let me in. You're not getting past these, these 6 women who probably know death holes, you're not going to go past them. At which point, this limousine pulls up and a guy hops out and he has his top coat on. He runs in, he glances over, what's that? I said, oh, it's the new Nintendo. We advertise with you. Well, so he fell for it and goes, oh, come on in, let's see it. And so I went in there. And he had kids. Did you have kids? Yeah, and I told him what we're doing, and we're advertising, and then finally came over bartering. That's why we were airing at the time we were airing. He said, I said, do you have kids? Yeah, well, take it home and see what they think about it. So I gave him one. So the next day, Ron gets a call. He goes, Bruce, they want to see you again. Why? Well, he's got more friends that want game systems. So I load up we actually had a car. We stopped using the limousine at that point. So we drove over there and gave some more and gave some more. And now our commercials got to be 11 o'clock at night, and, you know, and a little better. And then the one that, and only I think I saw this because Ron was late getting over to Boodle's Bar. And it was a Monday night game, and they had, it was the Giants playing somebody, and, you know, it was a big game. And they came on and they had a Chevrolet commercial, and I guess they hadn't sold the spot for a local spot, and they threw it on there. And the next day things started moving. So, I mean, that was sheer luck. I mean, we never even said anything about it because it would sound so stupid. Like, what are you guys doing? But that was kind of Ron's idea. So, and it worked. You know, it did work. So.
Yeah, you know, you said you've never heard of such a thing, so I just
Yeah,
want to say that
please.
barter advertising, where you, slightly different than this, but where you say, we'll give you our advertising dollars if you will do
Right.
X. So that's kind of what we did with Toys R Us. We're going to place our advertising dollars with the agency you own, and you're going to carry our product. But with Pokemon, we did the same thing. We used Nintendo's advertising dollars to get the show on the air in 80 markets to kick off the launch of Pokemon, and was a big contributor to the success. So people like, let's say like me at the time in New York, but later the advertising department, when I was doing Pokemon, they don't like that because then they can't manage where those dollars go. Right, so this guy that had the Toys R Us relationship sucking up the media dollars and getting it on in the middle of the night would, you know, our agency, Gears Gross, was like, yeah, things would go a lot better if you just gave all your ad dollars and let us like plan it. But anyway, you said you'd never heard of that, but
Yeah.
but it's a thing.
Yeah. It's a so, but it helped. It helped a lot, and we had the. I don't know if you want to get into stories about how we sold it, but. You know, there were some interesting situations selling it when you went and sold the product. So
Is
Well,
this
actually,
when you
yeah.
going to like Bloomingdale's and whatnot to set up the displays? Is that the same simultaneous to this?
yeah, oh yeah.
Well, actually, on that note, let's hear from another colleague.
I was part of the team that actually helped launch the NES in New York, and one of the jobs we had was to drive around in these rented vans and go to different electronic stores and set up displays. And these displays were pretty good size, so it was shaped like R.O.B the robot to a degree, and then it had a display case with the different parts. And so we'd show up at some of these retail outlets, and here I am. I'm a innocent guy from Seattle who had never spent time anywhere else, and now I've got to convince these sort of rough and gruff store managers in New York and New Jersey to let us put a display up in their store. And so we'd come in the door and we'd say, hey, we're here to set up this display, and they'd be like, you ain't putting that bleepity bleep thing in my store. So I remember calling up Ron and saying, Ron, these guys aren't going to let us put this up in the store. And Ron said, just tell them to call their store headquarters and they'll explain. And so sure enough, that's what they'd do. And then they'd come back and they'd be all, hey, come on in. And I think because it was the name Nintendo they'd never heard of, so they had no idea about the company, and they it was difficult to kind of get traction, I think, that way.
Good question, Lance. Good timing.
So I think so Ron and my boss Don, who were there, then would call me up and say, we need an illustration of the displays in this store.
Oh, so you'd need to be like, this is what Macy's looks like with this display.
Yeah, Bloomingdale's, or what was the other one, F.A.O. Schwartz?
Yeah.
So the big retailers, and some of the smaller ones. And so then they would napkin sketch kind of some little alcove or area of the store and fax it to me. And then I would work all day at an illustration and run to the airport. This is before FedEx did local delivery. And I'd bring it to the airport and watch them put it on the plane, and they'd fly it to New York. And the next day, Ron would go back to the head of Bloomingdale's and say, is this what we agreed to? So
Wow, one-day turnaround.
One-day turnaround.
Service with a smile from Lance Barr.
I wasn't smiling.
But let's talk about Rob Thompson, who I just had the pleasure of meeting this year. Sweet guy. So what was Rob's role during this time?
Well, during that time, like he says, he was, like a 25-year-old kid from Seattle who'd never been to a big city, and he was one of the setup teams. And he had come from, as we talked about, John Pedersen. He was in that tech support group, so he could also make sure that the displays that Lance was designing were working when they all got done. But Rob's career, he left Nintendo maybe 6 years ago or so. He went on to be in the consumer service side of the business. So he's the one who started up and managed all the game counselors, he had hundreds of employees, game counselors, customer service people, and so he was a vice president or maybe senior vice president when he left of consumer services. So he had a great career there, and he is also a great guy.
All right, so here's a couple of the store displays from that time. So that's the M1 is the product name. You did a lot of M's.
Yeah.
I have no idea what stores these are, but did you work on the display, or was that a Don James joint?
I did. We worked together on that. I did the Rob had, that's a vacuum form piece. The upper and lower housing are the same piece, just repeated.
That was a department store.
Yeah.
That was a department store piece. The one that was the biggest, story about is the Toys R Us. Toys R Us was an important customer for us to get, and I knew the buyer there because when I started Nintendo, all we had was Game & Watch, and I don't know how many have ever heard of Game & Watch from Nintendo. The big excitement was when we brought out the dual screen LCD handheld game, and we got it in at Toys R Us and everywhere else, and I got to know the people at Toys R Us, and when I made a presentation there, and we had the buyer there who did not ever want video games again because he was in trouble because they'd lost, what was it, $500,000 in the previous year on Atari and all this. They were done with video games. Bobby Weinberg was sitting as vice president, and then Howard Moore, the executive vice president, was sitting there. And the buyer said, well, thank you for coming in, Bruce, but we're not going to touch that. We lost so much money. And, it's the old thing of me, you have to understand the value, and I don't think he did. And so we got ready to kind of end the meeting, figuring, okay, I didn't get that one. At which point Howard Moore, the executive vice president, sits down. He says, sit down, Bruce. I like what you're saying. I like the idea of the price control. I like that it's a better game. We'd like to take it in. And I said, can we have a display in your stores? He said, we don't put displays in our stores, electronic displays. We got the first electronic display in Toys R Us with the M82, I think it was, wasn't that what the M82?
At the time, it was the M8, but yeah. The nerds have figured this out.
Right, but it was, and that was part of the success, because once you had that in the store, they could actually see gameplay, not just what's on a box. That's what was so critical. We had to get that message again across. TV commercials, who trusts the TV commercials? Okay, yeah, you can make them look good. But when you actually see something in the store, and you see a game running, and go, that's just like at the arcade, that was the thing that spun the doors open. And, displays, there were several different styles of displays, and all of that, and they were very impactful. They truly were, and it was a lot of the success to the game, to the whole thing was that the kind of additional things that we did like that.
Yeah, and to your point, here's a couple game displays, and I'm thinking this is a Macy's. Rob agrees with me. So you mentioned FAO Schwartz earlier, so
Right.
here's a couple shots from FAO Schwartz. And then I think, okay.
I can tell you a quick story
Oh,
about
sure.
FAO Schwartz. Here's a funny story for you. We ship all this stuff out. Ron and I have got it all shipped out there. It's in the stores. And we decide we're going to go see who buys it. And we're in FAO Schwartz, and we're standing behind this pillar.
You're there too, right?
Yeah, you and me and Ron.
We're hiding behind a pillar, like really disguised.
Outside.
Yeah, they'll never know who we are, And so this guy came in and bought some of them, and I had to ask who he was. And we're like, well, you can't go ask who it was. You can't just go ask a cousin. I can. I'll go ask him. Went out there, and do you know who it was? I don't know if I ever told you who it was.
I do know that it was like Taito or something.
Yeah.
I don't know if they caught that in the mic.
Yeah.
Oh, it was some adult who was Asian. It was someone
Yeah.
from like Taito or something.
Yeah. And so that was the first one, and then the second one that went out, because I think you had went back to the office then, we were still hanging around there. The next one came out was a limousine driver, and he was picking it up for his person that used his service. And just all he would say is, it's the best singer in the group called the Supremes. So, but you can't put that in an ad, guess what, the Supremes are buying it, it's been great. Diana Ross thinks it's the greatest thing ever, but, we knew at least. And, it was kind of like one thing after another that kept building on it, but that gets back to the game was exactly like the arcade. And even when we fumbled the ball a few times, we always knew in the back of our heads we had the best product out there, and that we had to convince them that we did. And the second thing we had to convince them of, you will sell it for this price. That was critical to the success. A lot of them wanted to, Walmart wanted to sell it at $99, and we said, no, we didn't take the order. So you had to be able to get the price point across, because they wanted to make money. They'd lost money on Atari.
Gail, thanks for inviting me to this party on October 9th.
I want to say before,
please.
Bruce says that I wasn't there, we went back. We did not go back to the office. I don't know what he's talking about. We left the window at FAO and went to, believe the Ritz and had drinks.
Okay, you didn't have to put that in there.
And it was like, I'm like the 27-year-old ad girl,
Yeah.
and they're taking me with them. It was great. But it was like 10 in the morning.
Yeah.
Well, and one of my favorite stories from my career, if I can butt in because it is relevant, is I interviewed, I think, both of you years ago, because I was trying to substantiate, what is this October 18th date? What does this mean? I can't make sense of it. And both of you told me contradictory stories that meshed a little bit, but
Gail's is probably more accurate.
But yeah, I agree. Gail's memory is insane. But my favorite moment in putting that together was, you were talking about how you went and got drinks, right? And you're like, and I'm like, October 18th was a Friday, and you were like, well, it couldn't have been.
I know.
You're like, well, it couldn't have been
Still
a
feels like
Friday
Saturday morning, but.
because you didn't drink on weekdays. Was your answer?
We were still there on Saturday morning, I think.
You were doing it all night.
I don't know.
I like the bar at the Ritz, that's why we went there.
So we still don't know what this date is, but
It's
let's
some-
go with it. It's October 18th. It's today, 40 years ago.
That weekend, it was you look back
That may be
on
the
it.
ship date, not
Yeah,
the
you
buy.
look back on it, and it is amazing all the steps we took to get there. And if you try to do it again, I don't know that you could. Just to go through all that, the company Nintendo took an industry that was dead and turned it into an industry today that's bigger, that industry, than the motion picture industry. It's a massive industry. And had we not done Nintendo, who knows what would have happened. Yeah. It was an exciting time. It really was.
All right, it's time for that commercial. We're now advertising on television.
This is a great commercial.
Will it be you?
I'm scared.
Will your family be the first to witness the birth of the incredible Nintendo Entertainment System? Will you be the first to see, to touch, to play with R.O.B, the extraordinary video robot? He follows the commands you put on screen to help you tackle even the toughest challenge. Will you be the first to raise the incredibly accurate Zapper and play games like Duck Hunt and Hogan's Alley? The first to build a library of game packs like Kung Fu and golf, even games like Excitebike that you program yourself. Will you be the first to get all this in one package? The Nintendo Entertainment System, where video technology is more than a game.
Where video technology is more than a game. Yeah, applaud it. Yeah. So this advertising was all Gears Gross, is that right?
Yeah, it was Gears Gross, and we were filming for about 4 days, and I think that as we keep talking about being on this short timeline.
That was a 4-day shoot.
But there was a 30 and a 60, and the egg thing, how long it would take to get the lighting, all this stuff is not like done in post. Like these things, there's actually lighting happening properly to make the egg open. And as silly as it is, you know, that the length of time it takes to do this in real time and not after the fact, you know, was actually an accomplishment at the time. And then we showed the commercial in FAO on the window, and the father sued us for not having paid for.
I almost
for-
put that in here, but
For the rights to display the ad as
We didn't have the
opposed to
right
run
release.
it on TV.
Yeah, we didn't have the right
Anyway,
release,
just a
I think,
little
yeah.
side story.
No, but you see, the idea now, remember we pitched this about getting the kids back home. Okay, now they're home. You know, mom's standing there looking down at her family, and everybody's home on this company. And that was the whole idea behind delivering that. There was a commercial later on, I remember, and I was probably at Sega, that's why I remember this one, was the next launch of another, and it was a rocket ship or something that took off again because that was happening again. That looks familiar. But, you know, it's a, I was excited to be part of it, and as he said before, I actually did leave and start Sega, but then I came back and moved to England and did Nintendo in Europe. So it was kind of, it was a lot of fun company.
just go through some of the newspaper ads really
Those are
quick.
tacky ads. Who did those?
These are the retailers did these. These are
Ad slicks, what do you mean? You
Yeah.
came from that side of the world,
I know
electronics.
it. I know it.
I find it very interesting that I don't think you could see from there, Lance, but on the Toys R Us ad, the line art is actually still the AVS design, so false advertising there. Okay, this is something I only found recently, but there's an event at Giant Stadium.
I don't know what that is.
You don't know this one? So you can't explain to me chatting with Nintendo's 5-foot-tall talking robot? Was this an unauthorized R.O.B appearance?
That actually would have been exciting, that someone would have been so interested in R.O.B as to make up 5'1", I don't know. No.
I think Gail was still at the Ritz.
All right, hang on one second. Okay.
You know, a little side note, a fun thing, when we launched in New York, we did a press thing, remember that? At
Yeah,
Studio
he
The
had,
invita-
it was
the
a
invitation?
massage, but similar to Studio 64.
Yeah.
54.
54.
Studio 54. Some of you are old enough to remember that used to be a cool club to go to in New York. And so we did a press conference, and Ron was going to do the presentation. So we're in a taxi cab, and we're going over to it, and everybody's there and holding it. As we're getting out, Ron goes, "I can't do this thing, you do it." And he gave it to me, and he said, I had exactly 3 minutes to get ready to do a presentation, but it was all the press wanted to see what was going on, and it went well.
What was all the press, Gail?
Yeah, I think we were hoping for press. Generally, all of our industry contacts
they were there.
came.
But we had some other stuff
And
there.
we had some, but
Yeah.
the struggle with getting press, when you have something where the industry, the journalists want to say that it's over, that video
Right.
games were over. And so one of the ideas that Howard Phillips had for me was that I should throw R.O.B off the Brooklyn Bridge, and that I would be sure to get press. Anyway, it was a little bit tough to get them to say anything nice about video games at that time.
Yes.
Oh yeah, let's hear from one final colleague.
Right.
Yeah, so the only way to show people how good the games were and how they were exactly like the arcade games that we had was to actually go out and do it. So we had mall tours, we had demonstrations, I had a press tour, but it really involved just going out and setting up the game somewhere and having kids come up and giving them the controller and having them play. And of course they immediately recognized, this is cool, this is just like an arcade game, and somebody's letting me play for free, I don't have to put in a quarter anywhere. And meanwhile, their parents would be standing behind them or next to them, and I'd say, oh yeah, this is the new Nintendo Entertainment System. It's a home video game system. And they'd say, oh, it's like Atari. Those games are awful. And then their son or daughter would turn around and say, no, this one's really great, because it was exactly like the arcades.
One of the things that Gail did too, which we should add to this, which was really important in New York, she did a mall tour.
Oh yeah, here it is.
And what was his name? Mookie
Mookie Wilson.
Mookie Wilson was a star baseball player for the Mets, and his son was, what, about 9, I think?
Yep, Preston.
And so we
I have photos for everything.
It's like, I just talk and things come up. But we had him in the mall, and we did the Paramus Mall. That was a big one. We did the one out on Long Island. But he would be there with his son, and he's playing the baseball game. And here's this star that everybody in New York knows, and his son said, "This is just like, like Dad, when I watch this is so good." Okay, we're just seeding this like you wouldn't believe. We're just seeding the audience. The kids are screaming for it. So it was, but that was a lot of Gail stuff. So.
I think these photos are technically from like an '86 mall tour, but it's the best we've got. So do you kind of want to walk us through the point of a mall tour?
Well, of course, like Howard said, it was for hands-on, to be able to get people to have hands-on experience, and Bruce keeps emphasizing the games were different. They were more like an arcade. So, to get as many people as possible to actually literally see it and play it was the goal. And Nintendo, again, this tactic that we started with this NES launch, we continued. So actually, I think the picture that you have there with the red balloons is, we continued. We went from New York then to only LA, and then to the rest of the country for the next holiday season.
Spoilers.
Sorry. And so Howard Phillips did the mall tour in LA, the 5 or 6 that we did, and I think that is a picture of the LA setup.
I think that's right, and I think it was Pat Contry who pointed out to me when I was showing him this that we didn't have Mervyn's on the East Coast. So,
I saw the Mervyn's West Coast thing.
Let's see.
Here we are.
Yeah, that was Rob sent me this picture and said this is the 3 of you exhausted having set up some mall tour stuff.
Yeah, Don James took the picture of us just being exhausted. It was I think this was sometime in, late, it feels like it was late September, but everyone reminds me that the product hadn't launched yet, so it had to be a little later. But my husband, who is here, we all talked about how everybody was missing their anniversaries and birthdays and all kinds of things. So that's kind of why it keyed that timing for me, was missing an anniversary.
Side note, I'm literally missing my anniversary today. That's right, I got married on NES Day. Right.
Rob and Jamie.
Yeah, so the arrow's now removed from this picture, and we've revealed Rob Thompson. So kind of a little bit unsung, I think, not often talked about, is that in probably, I think, November, Rob went back to Redmond to start essentially the consumer group, right? Because you now have products in the marketplace. They're going to break. People are going to be confused. So can you tell us about, Rob wrote up some memories, but again, tech issues. So why don't you do it? Can you tell me about Rob kind of setting up the first, what became the counselors group, as we'll see on the right?
He told me the other day when he wasn't able to come, but he was telling me that there was some kind of plexiglass division between JP's area and his area, and
represented by the white gutter here.
Yeah, and it had like 3 or 4 people. Yeah. Now, the kind of thing that happened at Nintendo was when people open their product at Christmas and they can't hook it to their TV because everybody's TV is different. And so what kind of connectors? And so Rob would have to convince people to work on Christmas morning to
sometimes way late at night because people get up and opening presents.
Yeah, so that we would not have consumer disappointment. So, yeah, I don't.
But I mean, this is like ad hoc. You had to go back and just figure this out, right?
Yeah.
Budget was slow. You can tell it's missing the ceiling tiles, a few other things. It was not like the other offices.
They eventually got an entire building.
Yeah.
That's right.
So, for me, as we're kind of wrapping up, God, we do not have time for questions. We have a few questions. What I think is sort of substantial about this date, right? This October 18th date, or just the drop of the NES, right? To me, as an historian, if I can butt in here, it really comes down to these 3 things, right? These 3 things all happen at the same time. The concept of a console that could control who could make games for it, right? Not that it's a person, but you know what I mean. Super Mario Brothers, you know, basically defining what a home video game was from then forward. It was more of maybe a journey and not a high score kind of arcade thing, right? And then finally, you know, sorry, Lance, the directional pad.
We need a whole hour to discuss that.
Yeah.
The development of joysticks and.
But the fact is that before this,
Yeah.
right, it was basically just joysticks.
Yes.
We didn't have just flat things
Yeah.
on controllers, and like all three of these things are still the video game industry
Yeah.
today, and I think that's like a remarkable drop to happen on the same day.
Yeah, the joystick could have been, I've picked to the design part of this, it could have been anything. You know, we were experimenting around, and of course, the Plus controller ended up being the C-stick, which is ubiquitous now. Everybody's gone with that, and they still hang on to that as an optional directional pad.
Actually, that's true. Now that I think
Yeah.
about it, you know, I have the Xbox One pad, and you could switch out the disc for something more like this that
Yeah.
doesn't infringe your patents.
Yeah.
Did he say he has the Xbox? Should we leave?
But that wraps up anything I have sort of presentation-wise. I'll just shout out really quick that I didn't even say this, but I represent a charity called the Video Game History Foundation, and we put this together for you. Thank you. And if you appreciate rounding these folks up and other preservation work like that, come check us out. But I'm just going to leave this on screen, and I will just, you know, raise hands, and I'll point. Okay. In the mask. Hi. Hi, Heidi.
Hey, so, question. You said that you didn't promote Super Mario Brothers initially. Like, what was the reason behind that? And when did you realize, okay, we should probably push this one more?
Just to repeat the question for the recording, so as was pointed out on the slide, we didn't really talk about it. In '85, Super Mario Brothers was there, but there was no marketing behind Super Mario Brothers. And, you know, it ended up being the hit game in '86. So the question was, why wasn't the game marketed in '85? And when did you realize, oh, this is our star?
Well,
You can answer it, Gail.
yeah, since the robot and the zapper were ultimately being put forward, you know, you can only showcase so many things. And it was very quick in first quarter when I think that they called it the base set. Now I might be incorrect.
The games included.
But we moved to that when we felt that we could continue to keep Rob and the Zapper in the deluxe set in case we needed that for people to separate this out from old the prior generation, but then offer that. So we kind of started splitting, and then, of course, ultimately made it the killer app. But yeah, you just can only talk about so many things, and separating out the hardware and accessories was the thing.
Well, I'll also point out that in Japan, I think the release date, if my mental database is with me here, was September 16th. So that game existed for 13th, thank you. So that game existed for a month. I don't know that you even had time to evaluate it much at that point. Yeah, in the hat right here. Yes?
Yes. So a lot of people like associate Rob the Robot with the NES, right? But you know, the Rob the Robot was also released in Japan under like the less creative name of like Family Computer Robot. So I was just wondering, did the concept of Rob the Robot first originate like completely from the Japan side of Nintendo, or from the US side, or if there was like any like back and forth between the two teams about how to design or market it or something like that?
So that's a really good question. So the question was, Rob the Robot, was kind of your star in '85, but the robot did exist in Japan. There was a Famicom version of it, and the question was, did the robot come entirely from Japan, or was there any collaboration on the US side?
My problem is I have a memory that feels like it's out of sync with Rob the Robot, but I feel like Mr. Arakawa thought robots were, when maybe we were moving away from the strict electronics approach, but he had a thing about that robots would make it futuristic and fun. So I don't know if he influenced Mr. Yamauchi or not.
He did. He actually, I remember that. I mean, I do remember the thing about the robot was, when I first heard about it, was Mr. Arakawa did really like the concept because robots were becoming popular. I mean, people were building robots and things like that, and so it was kind of like, okay, it's something that will relate to a new audience. Anything that could be like relating to a new audience, and that's where I recall where we first heard about it, and then from then I think it just kind of moves through the pipeline of we'll include it, be something that's different. We had to have things. If we just put another black box out there, like that were out there, then we're just another video game system. And even if the picture was good, you were still just a video game system. The concept here was we have to be so different, and so just by on the boxes when you bought a video game, it had our game on it. It wasn't the great photograph you see on an Atari box. It showed you what it looked like. It was all those little things that were all put together, and then the robot was just like, whipped cream on top of the sundae type thing. We'll throw that in there too because it's a unique item. You imagine if you did that TV commercial with those two kids would have been just sitting there staring at their dad shooting the screen. So that's why we had it, right? She's a genius. Okay.
Yeah, we didn't do any development work on R.O.B. in our
we
market.
just inherited it.
You did his logo.
Yeah,
I did the red sticker on there. So we changed the color, to match the system. So it's Famicom colors in Japan, and then it's the gray.
Well, and something that was told to me once, I don't remember who it was, might have been you, Gail, maybe it was Howard Phillips, it was basically like stuff would just kind of show up from Japan sometimes, right? And it'd be like, hey, can you market this? Can you market this knitting machine?
We can think of a lot of products like that over the years that were like, oh, we're going to have to sell this now. And we wrapped it up in everything else and did our best.
I saw, brown Goomba hat, yeah.
Yeah, this is not so much about the NES, but more just for Gail. You were pretty pivotal in my upbringing as the editor of Nintendo Power as I was growing up. And so I'm wearing my Star Fox competition jacket from 30 years ago. So I just want to know what were some of the promotions like that that stick out in your mind as being the most successful or the most fun plan or?
So the question is stories about promotions, maybe from your time at Nintendo Power and competitions and things like that. What I'll say to that, just so we can squeeze in one more about the anniversary, is that we are going to head out. There's like a table area right after the panel, and Gail, I'm sure, would have a couple minutes to talk about that with you. Does that work for you?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
There's so many, and if you guys ever entered a players poll contest, I loved giving away the Batman car. My husband Ron and I were supposed to go to the Super Bowl, but a war happened and we all got grounded, and that kind of thing. Players poll contests where I could name 20 of them.
All right, final question, and this better be about the launch. It's green hair, yes. Yeah.
Was there any decision making about cutting the microphone or any of the features that were in the?
Yeah, we took that out of the controller. It's like those other features that we're talking about where there's only one game. You have to have two in a series to have the S on the word series, right? Otherwise, it's kind of. So there weren't any other games that really justified the extra cost. And since trying to make things cheaper on manufacturing, since we went from that deluxe version with the infrared capability, now we're trying to make it a little less expensive and mass market it more. So that got dropped.
That is all the time we have, unfortunately. But thank you so much, everyone, for coming.
Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and here are a few more videos for you to check out.